Nanrisa, welcome to the Quantum Leap podcast.
Hey everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we got Jen Cho herself. Is it Jen Chow? Jen Cho? I'm always wondering how I should pronounce that.
Yes, me too. Funny story. We've changed the last name to Jen Chu, Chu. So I'm half Chinese and half Korean. My character is Chinese and half Korean as well. But my last name's Lee. It's like really easy, and so I don't know anybody with the last name Chou. So we were shooting, and I was like, "Is this Chow Chu Chow?" And we had a conversation about it. And I was like, "Listen, I just don't want to be mispronouncing my own last name." So we changed it to Chu, Chu, which they were really lovely about. Of what would you prefer? And that's my late best friend's last name, and I just thought it was a nice tribute. So IMDb, if you're listening.
That's lovely.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that's so. We've been speaking for about 30 seconds. We already have a Quantum Leap podcast exclusive. It's now Jen Chu. So fandom, take heed. But either way, we are thrilled to have you here on the show. And if we can just start generally, if you want to tell the fans a little bit about your background and how you came to Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Quantum Leap specifically, I mean, I pretty much the standard way, got an audition through my agent, and it was my first. I feel like it's like kind of my first like real pilot season, like reading for larger roles, and this was the first one that came up, and then tested and went through and met everybody in Vancouver. It was. Yeah, pretty standard. I was very, very excited. My deal closed on 2/22/22, so I'll always remember that day. But yeah, it was Jen Chu, the character. I think I know most of you have read the original pilot, right? So there wasn't a ton.
Yeah, I'm the only holdout.
I love that. I love that. You want to be surprised, right? There wasn't, I auditioned with dummy sides. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term. So basically for people, if anybody isn't, it's sometimes with things with big IP, Marvel or whatever, they won't give you the actual sides. They'll give you what they call dummy sides. And just things that are sort of parallel the character or the character traits, and they just want to see what you're going to do with that. So I had one scene from the original pilot, and then also the main scene was dummy sides, and yeah, it was a really good time. It was interesting actually, because there's been some refining out for Jen, but originally there was a lot of comedy in those dummy sides, and some backstory that carried over, which is really exciting. And so I just kind of had fun and did my best. And
I was really interested in the comedy element because I noticed in the original pilot there were some funny moments in it, and then that seemed to get sort of dragged back a bit when the show actually got to air. And then it's felt like Jen's character has brought those comedy elements back in. Was that much to do with you, or was that more the producers? You seem to have a lot of comic timing that they've been leaning into a lot more in the last few weeks.
Yeah. I think that was always there in the scripts, and then I think especially with new shows, you're still finding the shape and refining things down and finding the tone for your show and the rhythm and the composition, really, where everybody sort of fits in together. And so there were things certainly included the whole time. And then what's that saying? I mean, I don't, it's not 100% for TV, but they say it for film. There's three movies that get made. It's the one that gets written, the one that gets the one that the actor does, and then the one that gets shot, and then the one that gets edited. So I mean, it's a similar structure. So I don't know if this is normal for all new shows, but it would make sense to me if it was, that you would include sort of more in the beginning, and maybe on the page or what you shoot, and then you kind of refine that out as you edit. So yeah, that was the case for me. But yes, there has always been humor for Jenn, and I think now we're hitting a really good sort of tone and where she is with the team and her style of humor, because I'm a lot to rein in. So, but I'm
Well, we're glad it's coming out in the character.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm pleased that you see it.
Yeah, well, one thing that I've noticed is that Jenn seems to be the character who has had the most evolution since the show began. I feel like, she was introduced as the head of security, and then there was some minimal stuff that you got to do. And then it really kind of took off when it seems to me like they're pairing you and Ernie together for the majority of Ernie's scenes, I guess because of the dynamic that you two share as characters. But it seems to me that chemistry is there in real life as well. So was that more of a conscious choice that they leaned into when they discovered that you guys, were kind of simpatico, or how did that all evolve?
I think it was there. I think it was there on the page. I think again in the dummy sides that I auditioned with, there was a reference to magic, and how their paths had crossed. And I think I just sort of leaned into that. One of the amazing things about being an actor, one of the really fun things is you fill in the sort of white spaces and the blanks and the backstory, and that's why things look so different on everybody, right? So that was something that was important to me when I was sort of building that character. And then we met in person, and Ernie, as you all know, is a lovely human being, and we got to spend a bunch of time together, all of us in Vancouver. But Ernie and I were in the same hotel, and because there's Addison's character and Ben's character are so active all over the show, and we had more time on our hands, so Ernie and I would just we had a lot of steak and spinach together, a lot of steak dinners, which is great. And it was a great opportunity to get to know each other. And, he's the most generous, kind, fun, lovely person you could meet. And I think the producers and the execs definitely did pick up on that and leaned into that when we began shooting the series. Yeah. But I feel like we've all been really lucky in terms of our main cast, all the cast really, because the guest cast is phenomenal. But our main cast is, we're all a little goobery. We all like to have fun, and we get along. We enjoy spending time together. We went out together last night. We went to dinner and went to a show, and just kind of goofing around. Just the 5 of us. Yeah.
With the majority of your stuff taking place so far in present day and mostly back at the project, what is your schedule like as the week goes? Because I know it's an 8-day shoot, but how many of those days are you on set usually?
Yeah. So typically, the way that the rhythm has been feeling lately is we usually shoot headquarters stuff 1 to 2 days. So they're big days. It's kind of days where you sort of hit the ground running, and you're kind of in every scene, or and you just, but it's great. It's it's not a bad schedule. So we'll usually shoot 1 or 2 days at headquarters, and then maybe if if we have a scene or two outside of that, if they let us out of the cave. I always joke around. Me and Ernie go on our missions. Then that's usually another day somewhere, but typically it's 1 or 2 days. And then, because of that schedule, I really like to spend time on set, when I'm not shooting, to just kind of see Ray, because we never see Ray. We never get to see Ray because he's always in a leap, and we're always, in a different world, and it's just nice to see him. He's the kind of guy you want to spend time around him, and to meet the guest cast, similar situation, and also just to get to know, I think, the crew, production. This is my first series regular, so I'm really excited about, like, every freaking thing, like everything. So it's a really great opportunity. Yeah, to get to know about to get to know the writers and the directors, and watch how they work and watch the interaction, get to know people I learned about greens the other day. I didn't know that's a whole department. That's like set dressing, but they excuse me, I'm just taking a sip of my tea. Thanks for the swag. Which is a whole different department. It's set dressing, but specifically for greenery, like for plants and for. Anyway, it's all fascinating to me. I'm naturally a very curious person, I think. So I try to come to set when I'm not shooting and get to know people, and TV is such a huge production. You'll have 80, 100 people on set, and because we shoot so tight on headquarters days, you're kind of hitting the ground running, and you're it's all the words, and and you're focused on your scenes and your relationships with the other characters and stuff. There isn't, for me at least, a whole lot of extra bandwidth and room to kind of like soak up the other stuff. So yeah, that's what I do. That and a lot of donuts on my off days.
Nice.
Doing it right?
Can I maybe pick up on a couple of things you mentioned? You said about one of the most fun parts of your job is or being an actor is the preparation and filling in the blanks and effectively kind of that planning element. You also said this is your first series regular role. So can I ask what the biggest surprise for you has been, whether it's in terms of the direction Jen has taken or anything else about this kind of moving into this world of regular TV production?
I don't think it's the biggest surprise, but so sorry to immediately not answer your question, but I don't think it's the biggest surprise, but
that's fine.
The biggest element certainly is that has come up time and time again, and will over the entire course of my career, is for me has been confidence in my own creativity, my abilities as an actor, and who I am as a person. I think this industry, it's a difficult industry. I mean, it's being an actor it's competitive, and there's so much of like the circumstance pie that we are not privy to, and we'll never know, why certain decisions get made, why one person got cast over another, why something, got changed or this or that. Many times it has nothing to do with you, but you'll never know. And sometimes it absolutely does have to do with you. But I think something that I have learned over me growing as an actor is that it's when you really strip it all down, it's all that other stuff can be so distracting and really stressful and kind of not good for your self-esteem or mental health, or for some people, for me. And so it's always better for me to try to just, if I start to feel that way, you kind of try to just focus and get back to sort of what is important for me, which is what feels good for me in the character, how am I pleasing myself creatively, and just trust and faith in that. I think on this show especially, we're all really lucky to be surrounded by amazing, generous, protective creatives, the execs. I don't know if that's always the case, but that's been my experience. I always feel really protected by the EPs and everything. And I have my own separate relationship with all of them, but, and I've had a little bit of conversation with that, about that with them along the way. And they're always just like, you're fine. You just do what you do. You know what I mean? Like, that's why we hired you, and I think sometimes on these bigger productions, you can get a little like, is that what you wanted? Or I don't know. Like, is this, do people like this? And I think sometimes it's easy to forget under those, when you think you hit like big leagues or something, that they hired you they hired me for the choices I made before they knew me, so I think it's important to keep that in mind. And as you grow as a person and as people grow in their careers and their professions, that's something that I think that comes up for probably a lot of people, right? Because you're stretching and expanding and, moving into these new territories that you haven't had experience with before. And I think if you feel fulfilled by what you're doing, then I think the odds are you're okay. You're on the right track,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying everything that you're doing on camera. And I know that in episode 8, we came to sort of a revelation about finally why Ben left prematurely, why he kind of sidestepped Addison. It was to save Addison. And in making those choices, I don't know if the actors are flying as blind as the audience. Did you know the overall arc up front before, you guys started this season? Or like, did you hear from the writers about, okay, we're going to go in this general direction? Or is it being doled out to you like it's being doled out to us? And does that affect the way you approach the character?
Yeah. Yes. And yes. Yes. It's funny. I'll get a script. And because of our schedule, because usually headquarters, it feels like, unless they change, usually headquarters kind of is up first in the shooting schedule because, this show is amazing. They build brand new sets every single week because of the leaps. And so headquarters usually goes first. And so it's not uncommon for us to get a script a couple days out, and I've taken to I'll be reading it and then I'll like text Martin, like all caps, like, oh my God, what are we doing? Just like, because I get the same surprises as everybody else. And I think it's fun. It's really fun that way. And it's also a challenge, I think, as far as my character in terms of the arc and some of the relationships, certainly certain things come as a surprise, but I think I had conversations early on and have continued to with writers and kind of anybody who will listen about I think where I feel like Jenn comes from. She didn't come up through the normal route that I guess most people who work in Pentagon programs came through. Her past is a bit different. It's a little colorful. And I think that's, me personally, I think that's a massive strength to who she is. So I had some of those discussions with people, and again, continue to, and I see them reflected in the scripts. It's always nice, for those things to be acknowledged, and of course, we're having these conversations, and I'm spitballing things or things that I feel like are essential for Jenn, or important relationships, right? We see that in 8. That I feel like have affected her in her life and helped shape who she is as a person and how she handles the other relationships in her life. You know, I really don't think that Jenn, I hope I'm not spoiling this, Miriam. I don't think I my feeling for Jenn is that she didn't grow up with a lot of stability in her life, and I think it's one of the reasons why she's so independent and why she's pretty tough. You know, I mean, you kind of drop her in most situations, and she's going to be okay. And she's probably like, I'm fine. You know what I mean? She's like, not only is she okay, she's like over here, like doing something, you know, like she's resourceful. And so those things I think certainly have carried through. Absolutely. So those things aren't a surprise, but in terms of plot points and story, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, in this episode, we did get a little bit more of Jen's backstory about her dad and the way that she was basically in charge of her own life when she grew up. And it intimated that you and Magic have a pre-existing relationship, not only between each other, but that Magic somehow knows Jen's dad. And there seems to be a bigger story there as well. And I don't know if you can speak to that, but seeing that on the page, does that help inform the way you approach the scene, especially the way you play off of Ernie? Because Jenn has two sides, and I love that about her in the show, because you have the part where you say that you're a shark, and a shark recognizes a shark when you're talking about Janice. But then we get these great, wonderful scenes where maybe you're taking Addison aside to talk about Ben, or even in the earthquake episode, you had a great scene where you guys were just walking down the hall talking about like Real Housewives and, you know, how you're going to hang out. And so it seems like she's got, you know, both this very serious side and this very nurturing side, and we're getting to know more about that as we go. Are we going to explore more of those things in a broader way? Because you're always stuck at the project. I'm wondering how they're going to be able to branch your character out a little bit to flesh some of these things out.
Yeah. Well, you'll just have to keep watching, Chris. I think, yeah, that's absolutely right about Jenn. You know, I think, I don't know that Jenn was always so trusting of people, and Jenn keeps that circle small, you know, and tight. The people and it's her family at the program. There is a toughness and I think because she had to grow up so early in age, I think there is a little bit of this like, well, if it comes down to you or me, like, it's me, you know? But I think the way that she's grown as a person in falling in with this, with the Quantum Leap family, I think has been a huge evolution in her relationships and in the things that she believes in. You know, it's not like full white hat. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, like, but the Quantum Leap family is one that she has grown to love and trust over time, you know, and I think that for her has been spearheaded by Ernie, her relationship with Ernie, you know, and then learning to, because she trusts Ernie so much, you know, she's opened up to all of these other people. And I think too, when you come from, Jen's a thief, right? Like, she's a hacker. Like, the only difference between what she did before and what she did now is now it's sanctioned by the government. Do you know what I mean? Like, if the program shuts down in 6 months, like, you're not going to find her working for the Pentagon in another position. Like, she's, do you know, it's, so I think there's things about what she's learned about herself and about humanity, you know, through her teammates maybe she didn't have before. And I think because of that, because when you come from an environment where perhaps before people were not as trusting of you, and maybe rightfully so, maybe there's a little bit more me against the world kind of, point of view. And that changes when you fall into a group of people that you respect, and where over time you've earned each other's trust and really begin to care for each other, and you feel cared for and accepted and safe. I mean, that's huge for anybody, I think. Yeah, I think just Jenn knows that. And I think even when she doesn't, magic is right there to remind her of that. That sort of, there's a bit of surrogate father relationship there, and I think she feels safe and accepted by him.
So you had mentioned before that you had sort of forged separate relationships with the different EPs, and that you trust them, that you feel you're in good hands. But I have to think that the Mrs. Quantum Leap, Deborah Pratt, is probably on the set very frequently. Can you tell us what it's like to be with Deborah, who has been the biggest advocate for the return of Quantum Leap since it went off the air 30 years ago? And I just want to get a feel of what she's like on set. And after that, if you were familiar with the original Quantum Leap before you auditioned for the role.
Yes, I was. Which way should we go? Let's go Deborah first. Let's go ladies first. Deborah's great. Deborah's awesome. She is on the set often, and she made it very clear, to me at least, that in the beginning, that she was available to me if I had any questions, concerns, if I just wanted to talk about things that weren't about my character, or weren't even about the show. We were on the phone yesterday. She called me yesterday on Saturday. And we had a great conversation. I think Deborah is, if in character, Ernie is a little bit of my work dad, Deborah could be like a little bit of a work mom, work aunt. Deborah, one thing that is really obvious about Deborah, that is just sort of undeniable, is how much she loves the show, how much she loves the show, and how much she loves all of us. How you can feel, of course, that she just wants this to be a good experience for everybody, audience included, and I think she does. It's great to have somebody there, and in that position, that you feel like you can have conversations with that are about anything. I think she's always available, and I think that she makes her. I'm not. She's busy, but she always makes time. And I feel her love. She's just a wonderful person, and she says hi. By the way, she said to say hi to all of you. Yeah. I think she's very fond of you. Yeah.
Just like you, Matt sometimes just chats with Deborah. They're like BFFs now. So Matt knows how you feel.
She's lovely.
Right, Matt? I mean, she's wonderful.
I'm not quite sure I can call her a work aunt, but
I will say, I think that because she's had such great experience in the industry, and in multiple arms of the industry, she is such a proponent of, I feel like she looks out for me, and is like, listen, if there's things you want to do them. She's so encouraging, and she's really generous in lending guidance or advice or support into any way or that I might be curious about growing as in my career and as a person. But for somebody like me, again, where this is my first show as a series regular, you know, there's a beautiful amount of diversity in our show, in front of the camera and behind. And I think that was something that was really important to Deborah, and the rest of the executives, you know, to Martin, you know, to Brian and Steven, to everybody. And you really feel that on set. And I think she's a part of that. And that's, to me, that's a big deal. That's a really, I'm going to get emotional. It's a big deal, you know?
Well, it is a wonderful part of the legacy of Quantum Leap, the representation, and you guys are so much more free to do it now as opposed to the way that they were constrained in the late 80s, early 90s when the original show aired. So speaking of that legacy, Deborah is so interested in carrying it forward. How vested were you in the original series? Were you a fan of it? Did you know much about it before you got the part as Jenn?
Yeah, I was a fan of it. I used to watch the show with my dad. So my dad was, you know, when I booked this, my dad was, I'm going to get emotional again. my dad was, I think, the person I was most excited, you know, to tell, because I remember watching that show with him when I was a kid. I think too, the love, and then of course, like one of the first things he asked me was like, "Are you gonna leap?" And I was like, "No, I'm not the leaper." I'm the hack. But hey, you know, maybe season 3. But I think one of the
never
things,
say never.
Yeah, right. You know. Well, I'll pitch to the writers. I think one of the things that was, I hear that from many people that people watched it with their family. And I think one of the reasons why that is because the level of, I think, empathy in the series is so high. I mean, it just like, you know, we were just talking about inclusion a minute ago. And I think that show really did that in its time, you know, for its time. There was a big effort for that. And I just think, that's part of why it was such a popular show, and one that people, such as yourself and myself, you know, feel connected to today. And I think, you know, we want to be our version of the show, but absolutely that's something that we want to retain, you know, because I feel like, in my opinion, I think that's what's at the heart of it. And I think that there's many ways to do that, you know, to just push that empathy needle just forward, or up. And yeah, I'm proud to be part of a production that I believe does that. Yeah. I was watching I was rewatching an episode last week or something. The one where Sam leaps into himself as a kid. And I just, like, it just gave me all the feels. I love hanging out with my family, and we all really enjoy each other's company, and they're all in Hawaii right now without me, and I have like massive FOMO, you know, but I think, you know, I just, watching it, I was just like, yep, this is why I watched that show. I think, you know, you really feel the love and how much, you know, like Sam wants to like help it's his, and it's his family this time, but also understanding the sort of
Yeah.
like, I think the struggle of like, it's you got to do what you're there to do, and you can't always pick everything apart and make everything exactly the way you want it to be, and fulfill all of your personal expectations and wants, because it's just not life. You just got to try to move through with grace and love, and be a positive contribution to society if possible.
That's something that Quantum always tries to teach us, and just having such an altruistic character as Sam as an example to put that idea forward, and then to have someone as affable and just genuinely good-hearted, seeming anyway, as Ray, to take up that standard when he plays Ben. We've though hit sort of turning points in the series with this episode, and it seems to me like a lot of the back of the project stuff has so far been predicated on the fact that we didn't really know what was going on. Why did Ben leap? What's Janice's role in all this? Now that we have the revelation that we got in this episode, are we going to see a little bit of a shift in the dynamics of the back of the project stuff as the series goes forward? Because now that we have a little bit of a changing plot line with all that, I don't know if you can answer, but I have to ask the fans. The fans they'll take me out and string me up if I don't ask.
Absolutely not. Well, what would you like to see? I'd be curious to what would you all like to see? Give me your pitches. I'll take them to the writers' room.
I don't know if we have enough time. I mean, you got 3 lifelong fans here. You don't know what you're asking, but now what we like about the back of the project stuff. Yeah. But we would like to see just a little bit more cohesion, so that it's like the project and the leaps are working more in lockstep, and that once the sort of that central mystery is starting to get resolved now, for things to maybe normalize, because now you're all getting on that same page. And I guess that's where I was going with that question. It seems to me like there's a congruence happening with the storylines, and I'd like to see if that's going to continue. I hope it does. So maybe that's a better way of asking what I asked previously. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same question, but it only took me twice to actually get it out.
You had to ask it twice, because I'm not going to answer it the first time around. I think
exactly.
Being coy. I think you'll be pleased. I think you'll be pleased with how.
Okay.
How it unfolds.
Good. I'll take it.
It. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, you've been so generous with your time. Is there any aspect of the new show or something that you would like to touch upon that we haven't touched upon yet?
I haven't, since the show has come out, I have sort of not really read too much about in responses or online or watched many sort of response videos. So I think when I was coming on this show, I was like, oh well, let me I'll watch some, and I came across some of the podcasts that are right after I think the episode airs, and I think it's fascinating. I think let me just say that I think like Allison's feedback, I think, is like one of the things that's kind of really cool about the show. I think you guys are so kind, and I think and are champions of the show, but I love Allison, don't come for me. I do like that there's this format where people can respond openly about how they feel about things, and I think that this show is not it's not the original Quantum Leap, and I think as far as like the headquarters stuff, like sorry, not sorry. I love procedural, and I think that that's the great thing about working in a creative industry is like it's subjective and you can't please everybody. But I do appreciate the support and the honest responses. And it, it's always in a respectful way. And for the record, I was like, if they ask me what episode I've really enjoyed the most so far, and then I I listened to that one, I was like, oh God, she's gonna use it against me for the rest. But the Halloween episode is great. It's I love a whodunit, and I just think the characters are so fun.
Mm-hmm.
We treated to a fabulous guest cast every single episode. It's so fun meeting all of these people and dropping into those worlds. I love a themed episode. I think it's great. I also love 6. I think they did a fantastic job of the reshoots and tooling everything in. And there was a lot of headquarters in that, and we had a blast shooting it. We had a really good time. But hopefully, this evolves into something that really just, balances both, and that and we can, have fun in both worlds. But, I just think it's exciting for me, at least, obviously, but to be in this. I don't know that it's not a new version of the show, but it's, we're making it in 2022 and being able to take advantage of that,
Well, that is terrific. And we're so happy that we're going to be getting more of the project stuff and more of, I'm just going to say, we heard from Nanrisa Lee, some more convergence of the project and Leap stuff and a little bit more integration. That's the way I took it anyway. Maybe not a direct quote. That's me extrapolating. But we have been so happy to talk to you here on the Quantum Leap podcast. Thank you so much for appearing with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. And it was a good time. And I look forward to the future episodes of your show.